Hi everyone, I'm here with the Astro weather for the month of May. I know this isn't like the most popular of my videos, but the people who like it seem to really like it. So I think I'm gonna keep doing these. I mean, it seems to be popular with some people, so I'm gonna move forward. So let's talk about the month of May. So May, we'll go in order of kind of the events that are going on. The first thing that we have is really on May 3rd, where I'm going to put this up. We have Venus making a square with Neptune. Now, this isn't like a huge aspect, but because Venus is going into retrograde, what happens is she has this aspect with Neptune on the 3rd, the Sunday, May 3rd, and then she goes forward, stops, and then goes back again, and so repeats this aspect on Wednesday, May 20th. So it kind of creates this time where there's between the two aspects. So it becomes like a larger aspect than what it might normally be. And Venus is the planet of love and beauty. Neptune is about anything that is watery or is not contained, that is fluid. It's a planet that rules like illusions. It rules delusions as well, spirituality. It also is very much about having the rose-colored glasses on to a certain degree. So this is a time where we may feel very romantic, very optimistic, but we may not see all of the downside to things. So it's good in that it increases our optimism. It's good for things like creativity. It's good for enhancing our romantic lives, but at the same time, don't ignore warning signs. Don't ignore red flags. Don't think that everything is just going to be fine and all our problems are going to go away. So that's the kind of the downside. So during these 2 weeks, it's a good time to focus on things like positive romantic relationships. It's a good time to focus on creativity, but not a good time to make some really big long-term decisions. It's not a good time to make any really serious decisions, especially when it comes to things like long-term relationships or money or anything to do with like your looks as well, because Venus rules beauty and aesthetics. The other thing too is that I'll talk about in a bit is the Venus retrograde, which we'll get into a bit, but just so you know that this aspect is starting on May 3rd and it's going until May 20th, this sort of like heightened sort of like illusion thing going on. The next thing that we have is the full moon is coming up this week on May 7th. It is at 17 degrees of Scorpio. So a full moon is when the moon and the sun are opposite each other in the sky. So sun is in Taurus. And so when the moon is in Scorpio, that's when you get a full moon. So that's what's happening. And its exact degree is 17 degrees. And the Sabian symbol for this degree is woods in their autumn colors, which may seem weird because we're not in autumn, at least in the northern hemisphere. For the southern hemisphere they are. And what this full moon is really about is not ignoring the fact that there is winter coming, so to speak, not ignoring the difficulties that are going on. But it's saying that to choose to see the beauty in what is present right now. And I think that is really relevant for what's going on, obviously, in the world. So Scorpio full moons tend to be pretty intense. Taurus is all about the earth, the physical, the body, sensuality. It's about slowing down and being in nature. And Scorpio is about intense psychological and spiritual insight. So Scorpio full moons are really asking us how to marry those two things, that the body and the spirit are not separate. So it's asking us to marry that, to put some spirituality into the physical, or if we lean towards the other side, to put the physical back into the spiritual, so to speak. So it's a really good time for long-term financial goals, as far as like gratitude towards anything we've received, really looking at what we want for the long-term future. It's a good time to do some deep psychological work. It's a good time to do some insight. It's a good time for spells involving psychic development, for increasing our magical skills. It's a good time for any type of, like sexual or spiritual healing. It's a good time for looking into the occult. Scorpio is all about going deep with things, and doing some psychological healing too, especially right now. I think a lot of us, these kind of weird times can really trigger some deeper sort of mental health issues. So really looking at things like that during this full moon. The next thing we have is a Saturn retrograde on Monday, May 11th. Now, the outer planets go retrograde fairly frequently. They go for long periods of time. We don't necessarily feel them in our personal lives, but we may see them in the world. So when Saturn goes retrograde, there is a loosening of some of the restrictions we've been under, or at least a review of the restrictions that we've been under. But what it does say is that those restrictions might return as well. And of course, as we know with what's going on right now, it is a time where, everyone lives somewhere different and there's different rules. But where I live, they're thinking of easing some of the restrictions a little bit. I am not, just on a personal note, not rushing out anywhere. I'm not rushing out to go to the shops or anything like that because I'm going to wait and see how things go because, it can take a while for this illness to show up. So I'm not going to run out and do anything. But I think it's like a time where we may all be reviewing the restrictions and thinking like, what am I going to do moving forward and how am I going to act? And I'm not rushing into anything. But I think overall in general in society, there is a reviewing of restrictions and rules, what makes sense. But for some places, it may go back. They may open up and they may go back. So just a heads up for the next few months. Also on Monday, May 11th, we have Mercury moving into the sign of Gemini, and it's a sign he rules, so he's very happy there. Mercury is the planet of communication and of travel, and so we're going to be a lot more talkative over the next 3 weeks or so. There's a lot of talk, people chatting, and it may not be face to face, but there's going to be a lot more phone calls. There's going to be more emails and messages and Zoom chats and whatever. So it's a very talkative type sign. This is also, Mercury in Gemini is very curious, likes to learn things, has a sense of humor. So expect a lot more communication and things to pick up over the next 3 weeks after that. Mars moves as well that week. So Wednesday, May 13th, Mars moves into the sign of Pisces. And Mars is the planet of action, competition, war, and desire. And he's moving into Pisces, a sign he's not particularly comfortable in. He's pretty happy in Aquarius, but now he's going into Pisces, which is a water sign. And he's not terribly happy in water signs. So our sense of drive may be somewhat muted over the next 2 months until he goes into Aries, which is a whole other story. But also there's an increase in people being kind of passive aggressive because they don't want to outright show their anger or their frustration, but they may sort of like push it down, then it comes out in weird ways, like being passive aggressive. Also, Mercury in Pisces is a time where emotions kind of come to the boil, where old emotions might get stirred up. So expect that you might be feeling somewhat emotional from about May 13th for the next 2 months, like into June, July. And so there's sort of like a lot of like old emotional issues come up. Frustration might come out as tears instead of yelling. So there's a lot of like emotions going on with that. On the same day, Wednesday, May 13th, we have Venus going retrograde, which I kind of touched on before. So Venus goes retrograde in the sign of Gemini. She's going to be in Gemini for a long time, which kind of matches with what's going on because when Venus is in Gemini, she wants to be wooed with words. She wants to be appealed to her intellect, to her funny side. So definitely if you're doing some like online dating and stuff, that definitely helps with that, especially if you're, still in isolation or anything like that. Being able to chat with people is going to be sort of more romantic. But Venus retrograde, a few warnings with which Venus retrograde. So first of all, don't change your hair. Don't change your style. Don't get a tattoo, especially anything permanent during Venus retrograde. I don't know how many times I've seen people during a Venus retrograde change their hair color, cut their hair, go, I don't like these clothes anymore, throw them all out, get a new wardrobe, only to regret it once the Venus retrograde is done. Because Venus retrograde is about looking back on previous relationships, on beauty. So we might want to go back to an old style, or we might want to throw everything to the wind and try something new. But what happens when it goes forward again is like, oh, I'm over that. I don't really want that in my life anymore. So even if you're tempted to, don't go changing your style. Don't go redecorating your house. Don't get a tattoo, definitely, because that's permanent, or new piercings or anything like that. Wait till the Venus retrograde's over. if you have an idea for a new hairstyle or look or something, and once the Venus retrograde has passed, and especially once we're out of the shadow period, and you still want it, go for it, like totally go for it. But it's not a really good time for trying anything new, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people just do something and then regret it later. The other thing is old relationships may come up, and these aren't necessarily romantic ones. Friendships can come up as well. Now, with people getting back together with old exes, it doesn't always work with a Venus retrograde. It may work for a time, but then once it's over, it's like, okay, I'm done. Sometimes, though, it happens for a reason where we need to review, or we need to realize, like, oh, that's why I'm not in this with this person anymore. It's like we need to review it and go over things. It is a really good time to reflect on the past, though. It is a good time to reflect on previous things, previous relationships, previous friendships. It is a good time to do some self-examination. But like I said, not a great time to do any aesthetic changes or to run back into a former lover's arms. So just a heads up with that. Then we have a Jupiter retrograde on Thursday, May 14th. Again, this is an outer planet. We may not feel this. But what may happen is, with some of the easing of restrictions, Jupiter is all about expansiveness. It's about luck. It's about money and wealth and good fortune. And it's going backwards. So it's saying, like, some of these people may rush out only to realize around the 14th that they have to pull back again, that maybe they've gone too far or had too much. And so there's a sense of reviewing, where have we gone overboard at that time. The sun then moves into Gemini on Wednesday, May 20th, does this around this time every year. Our shift focuses from slowing down and focus and away from the physical and the sensual towards the more intellectual at this time. Communication, again, becomes really important. Talking to people, talking about things, studying things, working on things on an intellectual level becomes the focus for most people. We then have a new moon on Friday, 2 days later, at 2 degrees of Gemini. New moons are when the sun and the moon are together, so they're working together at 2 degrees, and it is a garden of tulips is the Sabian symbol for this new moon. And that's about really looking at what is luxury in our lives, what is needed, and what isn't needed. So there's a sense of, like, what do I need, not just for my physical self, but also what do I find beautiful? What is going to carry me spiritually? What's a necessity for me, and what do I not need? So there's a real review of that at this new moon. The other aspects that we have are the Mars has a sextile with Uranus on Sunday, May the, let me think about this, 24th. And so that's a time where unexpected things may come up. Or what day is this? I'm sorry. I did not write the day of that. I do know that it is happening in the 3rd week of May. And so there's some unexpected events that may bring some good news to us, and some excitement and some joy and some opportunities at that time. And then last but not least, we have Mercury moving into another sign again on May 28th into Cancer. So we move away from sort of that really chatty, busy, going everywhere, well, I don't know if people be going everywhere, but busy, chatty kind of energy, to kind of our communication becomes more emotional, more nurturing. It becomes more about connecting one-on-one with people, more about the depths of things. Also, we want to feel nurtured and loved and connect with people that we care about at that time. So you can see the energies kind of shifting. We have some retrogrades going on. There's a lot of reviewing of past things. There's a lot of, we open up the energy and the freedom, and then we have to pull it back. So just kind of expect those kind of themes for this month. So if you have any questions or comments, put in below. If you're interested in any free astrology resources, I do little tweets every day about some of the aspects that are going on. I do as well. I'm thinking of doing kind of like a newsletter as well. Let me know if you're interested in that, with some of the astrology a little more in depth. For those that are interested, let me know. And thanks again so much for watching. And as always, peace and love.